Well, it's been a long time trying to get this guy into the gallery. And he's one of my best buddies. And
Hold on a second.
yeah, this is typical. Everybody, this is Bryan Tubbs. And for those of you who have not gotten into the gallery and got to meet him, he's an elusive creature. So we got to bring him to you via live video here today. We're going to have him, we're going to dissect you. We're going to talk about some of your work because people are fascinated with your work. And it's probably the most talked about art in the gallery. The people that come through are mesmerized by it. You either really, really take to it and have an affinity for it, or you're sometimes, a little shocked and repulsed and freaked out by it. And that's one of the things I think that's cool is when art makes you think, when you actually have somebody that comes in that doesn't understand something or thinks it's really creepy and evil, and you're able to change their mind or show them why the work is not quite as out there as it first looks. So first off, welcome to the gallery, Mr. Tubbs. Tell me a bit about how your art career started, because I know you've been doing it forever, like since you were a little boy.
Yeah, my dad was an artist, and so growing up, he was a wood carver. So for me, it was going out to the shop, studio, spending time with Dad, and just watching him, being interested in it, and just watching him create and make things and make money, and I just thought it was super cool. So started sculpting at the age of 8. Sold, I think 3 pieces. Oh God, I don't even know what grade I was in 8th grade, or 8 years old.
Probably like third,
yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
So went down to Scottsdale, and my mom and dad pulled up and sent me into this store on Lincoln in Scottsdale, and walked in, asked for the owner, and put my sculptures on the counter, and he asked how much I wanted for them. I think I wanted $75 a piece, and he paid me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were these the Kachinas?
They were Kachina dolls, yeah. Gilbert Ortega. That was my first taste of success.
Wow.
So now I just turned 50. So yeah, I've been doing it quite a few years.
Yeah, definitely.
Put me through college. Yeah.
So a little bit background. Bryan and I went to high school here. He's a class above me. He was 1987. I'm 88. So in high school, I knew Bryan, but not as much as I've gotten to know him over the last probably 25 years. Because when I had my first gallery, a loft gallery over in Bashford Courts, he was doing completely different stuff. It was like very contemporary stone and steel,
and aluminum, yeah.
Stone and aluminum. And I did a show for him down in the atrium. Probably in like 96, maybe somewhere in that area.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah.
And then after that, he went off, I think, back down to the valley, right? Didn't you? And you got married and had kids. Started having kids around, how old are you? One of them would have to be 2002.
Yeah.
And you were in the construction trades, building houses. Mm-hmm. That's also the same time I got out of art and I got married and had kids and opened a masonry business. So both of us kind of were in the trades for years. And then I reopened this gallery in 2007 as Ian Russell Gallery of Fine Art. And I think it was probably right around 2010 when I was still over in the old firehouse.
Yep.
That you got back into doing art, and you called me.
Yeah, I'd always been doing it. I've always had a studio, and I've always done it.
Well, that's true. You were with Art One and everything down there in the valley.
Yeah, some other galleries down there. But my work has gone through so many different transitions. I mean,
sure.
I've got pieces that are sitting at parks that are concrete and steel.
That's
so
cool.
I mean, it's
So how did you get into the actual clay and this particular stuff? Because I remember, us talking one night at one of our late night talks, and you're like, "Hey man, I'm making these really cool masks and these weird little figurines. You got to check them out. I should bring you some down and let you see what you think." And that was in 2010. So what happened to get to that point? I know you'd done some bigger stuff for Craig down at Art One, and it had a lot of this look, because some of the early pieces I got were like those barrel kind of people with heads that sat on the ground, and you'd said a lot of those were outside pieces too. So give me a little kind of...
Well, the stuff that I started bringing in for you was, doing a lot of the contemporary stuff. I wasn't able to, it was cool for me because I was able to design and play with different materials. I loved working with big stuff, so I loved the outdoor pieces. But I needed to express myself a little bit more. I needed to dig deeper inside of me and be able to pull more of that out. And I had to do it with a material that I could afford, one I could manipulate, and people could afford to buy.
Sure.
And so my dad and I, in '92, I had graduated from college, and we opened up a pottery manufacturing business. And everything was all cast. So we cast the wares, and we were carving designs into them, and that was a huge success. But it still wasn't doing anything for me. And we started picking up some clay, bags of clay, and we started sculpting just stuff. My dad and I did. Lizards, horny toads, just different things to put on the pots. Then I started playing with it and started doing figures. And then I realized how much I could do with the clay. Now I've done bronze, and bronze is super cool and super fun.
Sure.
It's expensive to produce.
Right.
It's labor intensive, and I do a lot of it myself. You and I both worked at Thun Butte Bronze, so you know all about the bronze industry. But the clay is extremely unique. Just the way that it moves. There's so much movement to it. So it's really fun for me to play with, and I can make one-ofs all day long.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, I love it. It's not a series of 25 bronzes or something.
Right.
So,
Yeah, where you're repetitiously just working on the same piece over
boring.
and over and over. Yeah. But again, like when you finally got that little first batch of stuff that you brought me, describe maybe what was your mindset of what was going on? I know we both went through the big recession in 2008, and it took a toll on both of our, our construction companies. I was kind of on the way out already. You were still trying to keep the boat afloat and everything, and definitely some tough times for everyone. And
yeah, we we had a successful construction company. I had a wife and 2 kids, and it got shut down. I went off to Texas for 6 months to work. That was really tough. Kids were little, and my daughter was kind of, not afraid of me when I got home, but was, she was like 3 or 4. Yeah, I'd been gone for a long time.
Sure.
So I came home. We decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore, and I went and saw my CPA. Asked him, what should I be doing? What can I do? What should I do? Longtime family friend. And he said, get back in the studio. He said, do what you do best and go back into the studio. So I went back into the studio. At that time, we were broke. I was selling off my backhoes and dump trailers and just everything, just try to stay afloat. What could I afford? A bag of clay.
Mm-hmm.
Went into the studio, decided I wanted to do something that I had never done before, and just started creating from the world around us.
Sure.
It was just, it was sad.
Right.
And so I was making, sad things.
Yeah. Well.
And people related because we were all feeling it.
Sure.
So it was just one of those things, that moments in time where it all just clicked.
Yeah. Well, it was amazing because when I first got the very first 10 pieces in, actually when he brought them into over at the firehouse, when he brought them in and he laid them out, I looked at him and I was like, dude, these are really cool, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to sell these. And he goes, you know what? People seem to really like them. Give them a try, see what happens. And I stuck them out, and I think by the end of the week we'd sold like 5 or 6. And I was blown away because I was still doing masonry while my now ex-wife was working in the gallery, and she called me and said, "You're not going to believe this, but people really love these." And so anyway, they were just little masks and literally figurines that were probably this big with just a head and a torso. I don't even think they had arms, and they weren't really, I mean, some of them might have, and I know there was a lot of masks that were fractured and put together and very different from, but yet the same from what I currently show. When we moved in here, people wanted figurines on stands. They wanted more of a three-dimensional sculptural piece that you could actually set somewhere and not a wall hanging. And really in 9 years of being in this location, I've got to watch the work completely evolve. And it's such a cool evolution because they've all got such character and personality and in-depth metaphoric aspects to them that a lot of people don't really initially see, and that's what's kind of neat. And I'm gonna probably grab the handheld and just have Bryan maybe kind of describe a little bit of what his philosophy is with the pieces, and maybe you can tell us about a piece or two or something, and then we'll move on. We'll show the new stuff you're doing because he's got a whole new line of work that's really very cutting edge and different, and we will show all those in just one moment. I'm gonna get my ugly face out of here, and we'll focus on this guy and his art. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're standing over here. We're just gonna show some of the work that we have in the gallery right now. Bryan just brought us in new pieces in the last week, so we have some awesome new figurines. The very center of this display where the grading is, those are all bronze in the middle, and then on the sides on the wood, those are all one-ofs. Gives you kind of an idea of the collection and magnitude of what Bryan has in the gallery. Of course, those are some of the moons over there, and then we'll talk about the newest work that just came in. But I'm gonna have Bryan just kind of give an overall synopsis on his work. I talk about it quite a bit when people come in, and the girls do too, but it's always nice to hear it, kind of from the horse's mouth. So if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Tubbs, would you just give us kind of an overall idea of your thought process?
Well, usually when I go into the studio and I'm getting ready to create something, I want to create something on like the way that I'm feeling for the day. Right now, in the times that we're dealing with right now, my studio is a little darker than usual. But the reality of it is most of this stuff is coming from what's happening in our world and what's happening in my life. And so if you look at some of the pieces, I've been making masks for years and years and years. And one of the things behind that is how many times do you hear somebody say, I had to put a face on to go and do something. You're not happy. You have to be somewhere and you have to put on a smile. So a lot of people hide behind things. And so that's where my masks come from. And I have a lot of fun with those. As far as, missing appendages and being bound and things of that nature, that's all from the fact that none of us are perfect. We're hurting. We're missing things. We're always working on something. A lot of my stuff looks darker than it really is. To me, a lot of my pieces are happy. And someone else will look at it and they'll think, oh my gosh, what is going on with this piece? Like Ian and I were discussing earlier, rabbits. I had a rabbit when I was young, a buck was my favorite rabbit. I was telling Ian this story a while back. And we had a huge flood here in Prescott. And we lived by a creek here in town. And when we woke in the morning, it had washed our cars and stuff behind the house. And along with it went the rabbit cage and all of that stuff. So I lost my rabbit, and it was a sad day for me. But I really bring things that created emotion and things that have happened in my life into my work. You know, the bindings, I'm not, you know, into S&M per se, but, you know, how many times have you been in life and felt like you were bound to something? You were struggling, your hands were tied, you know,
Right.
all of those things. We can all relate to all of this.
Sure.
And so, you know, there's so much in all of these pieces. It's hard for me just to really talk about one thing. I mean, I could sit down and talk about each piece, and there is so much involved in that piece.
Right.
So, you know, this piece right here, it's a heart. You know, I love to make hearts, and they're a universal a piece. This one says hope. It's inside of a cage. You know, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of things being said in my work.
Well, that's what makes them so challenging and so cool, because it's like taking a book at its cover. You know, you don't know what's inside until you start really hearing a bit of this stuff. You know, I love hearing your ideas behind the works, and you know, it just makes it so much more complete. And they're really so cool. If anybody hasn't been into the gallery and seen Bryan's work, you need to come in and just tune into it, because I think it's the most compelling art we have in the gallery. And you got a whole new line of things, and let's kind of pop over here. This is a whole new genre for you, and something I think is really cool is you're taking your works and digitizing them and printing them in aluminum. Yeah. And they look phenomenal. We've actually sold through quite a few already. We've got these available in multiple sizes in any of the images. You're also doing some really cool boxed ones that you're doing original pieces around as well, which we may hopefully will be getting.
Finished a commission piece for a client that actually, you guys just sold this piece, Risking It All, this week, and they couldn't afford that piece, but I did that piece for them. I did it in a box frame because they love my coffin boxes that I do, and the coffin boxes are all unique and different. I'll put, you know, different stuff in the backgrounds and then pour the resins in there with the sculptures in there, and then I, you know, address the outside of the box. So I did a box like that for them, and I did a big single rose with a skull sitting down in the bottom corner, and then they had 3 kids, and so I did 3 hearts together in the other corner, and it was going to be for Father's Day. So, you know, call the gallery. We do tons of commissions. I'd love to sit down and just make whatever people can come up with and let me put my spin on it. But yeah, these are new and they're fun. A lot of times people don't have a place to put a sculpture, or they have a cat that has taken out a sculpture.
Right.
So this is just a new format. I have a degree in graphic design, and so something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And yeah, they're super fun, super cool. A lot of the backgrounds you'll see nails and wire. You'll see stitching. You'll see, if you look, you'll find this guy right here actually walking away from you in the smoke. On the bigger pieces, you can see a little bit better.
Yeah.
But most of the backgrounds, like the moon, you'll see his face over on the side, and it kind of looks like cosmic dust, but it's his face.
Oh yeah.
So there is hidden things throughout all the backgrounds, the coloring. A lot of it is actual textures off of my sculptures. So
Very cool.
yeah, super fun.
Awesome, Bryan. Well, thanks a ton for coming down today. I know that you've got a lot going on, and we all do too, and appreciate you taking the time to come down and talk about your art with us, and hopefully we'll one of these days maybe come and visit you, or get you back here in the gallery and talking about some other works.
Cool.
Thanks, Bryan.